Hello and welcome back to the channel. Hi if you're new here, hi if you are not. My name's Danielle. I make a ton of content here on YouTube, specifically talking about discussing debunking the life, spiritual, and business coaching spaces. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. And today we're going to be listening to a viewer submission scam story that was actually submitted to me a few months ago. This individual had thought about coming on the channel for an interview, but wasn't quite comfortable doing that. And so instead, she very kindly took the time to write her story out in length. And we are going to sit down together today, kick off the new year, and read the story together. Shout out to the channel VIP members before we get started, as well as Zurify, Tom, Suzanne, and Harrison in the billionaire tier. Thank you so much for your continued support of my content here on the channel. Now for real, let's go ahead and jump right in. If you're watching this, you're likely very cool because perhaps you're intrigued by the scammy and fascinating world of life coaches. Perhaps you think it's a glitzy lifestyle that allows you to make money, control your working conditions, and help people. Or maybe you know what I know. Life coaching is a completely unregulated industry. It seems to mix goal setting with mindset wellness and a shit ton of pseudoscience. From my experience, life coaches have more training in high pressure sales tactics and psychological manipulation than in ethics and therapeutic practices. Worst of all, the coach I worked with seemed to have no idea of the emotional repercussions a client will face when she attempts to dabble in therapeutic practices without the training and education required for such critical work. If you missed it, or maybe you're new here, I ran a series back in December where I posted 12 videos for 12 days called the 12 Days of Coachmas. And in that series, I sat down for an interview with Tom Stevens from Reaction Therapy. I will link the video here. He is a practicing therapist. And in our conversation, we discuss the boundaries of coaching and therapy and where we see one being more appropriate than the other, or perhaps how the two can work in tandem. All that to say, if you haven't watched that interview, I would highly recommend you do so because I think it sheds a lot of light on this conversation of what is therapy? What is life coaching? When do I need a life coach? When do I need a therapist? And so on. I don't even know if my story qualifies as a scam story. Sure, I spent some money and ended up harmed because of that, but my experience is much more than a story about monetary loss through a scam. It's a story about delusional thinking, manipulation, narcissism, and the total destruction of a deep and meaningful friendship that was probably never a two-sided friendship to begin with. It is so hard to even type this phrase, but I believe it all amounts to severe emotional abuse. Now, keep in mind, the names have been changed throughout this, which I think will become very obvious as I continue to read, but I did just want to preface that. When I first began working with Coach Crazy, I wasn't even seeking a life coach. I simply wanted to improve my diet and stick to a consistent workout routine. It started off really well. We focused on what I was eating, not what I was supposed to eat. We focused on small, manageable changes and then slowly started stacking habits together so that these healthy habits became a part of my daily routine. I felt so amazing. I wasn't craving sugar, alcohol, or processed food, and I was committed to weight training and cardio. My skin cleared up, my mood was elevated, and my clothes began to fit me like they had when I was 10 years younger. Coach K and I spoke weekly, and she was always supportive and like a cheerleader on steroids. She was effusive with her accolades and compliments. "You are so amazing. You're crushing it. Nothing is holding you back." While these phrases could seem over the top, I didn't hear them that way because I did feel pretty amazing. I had spent 41 years caving into a sweet tooth and junk food, even though I knew it wasn't what my body needed. Now I was eating fruits, vegetables, and low fat protein. I had never experienced such success and results like that. On top of the lofty praise, Coach K also slipped in compliments like, "You are such a dream to work with. You do the work. You show up, and even when you hit challenges, you overcome it. I am so proud of you. You are my ideal client. You are like me, a high achieving woman, and that is who I want to work with. When I work with women who are less committed, I'm actually disrespecting myself. So by working with me, you are helping me to be my highest self and serve my purpose in life, which is to help amazing women like you." I was flattered and believed it. I didn't feel like she was buttering me up. I was doing the work. I was committed. I was overcoming challenges. And it honestly felt so wonderful to have someone closely involved with this transformation. It was also interesting to hear her talk about these less committed clients and how working with me helped her live her life's purpose. It felt powerful and amazing that this person who was helping me was also feeling like I gave her a sense of purpose. After working with Coach K for a few months, I noticed a shift in our work. I wasn't concerned at first because I likened it to the way relationships deepen over time as trust is built. I began to feel like we were stepping out of the health coaching into what felt a bit like therapy or maybe peer support. She said we were moving on to life coaching. Every now and then, some of my old, less healthy habits would creep up. When I would discuss with Coach K, she would tell me a lot about her disordered relationship with food or body image. She would share things about her childhood and how our adult behaviors are often due to unmet childhood needs. She'd say, "You have to reprogram the habits you picked up from society, Jane. You have to go back in life and consider your unmet needs. That is the only way to get through these limiting beliefs that are leading you to self sabotage." This is giving me flashbacks to an original video I did on this channel. Honestly, I probably filmed it close to 2 years ago now. But I did a specific video talking about coaches who pretend to be experts on shadow work and like healing your inner child. I will find it and link it in the cards here in case you haven't seen it. But already we're only like a page and a bit in, and I'm seeing red flags starting to pop up of someone who is calling themselves a coach. Definitely, in my opinion, overstepping their boundaries. So I'm curious to see how this plays out, even though I kind of already have a hypothesis or prediction of what I think is going to happen here. Coach K had told me bits and pieces about her life as a coach and woman entrepreneur. Her life sounded really interesting and so different from my own. I wanted to understand it more. Similarly, she had told me about her family, her childhood, and her spiritual practices. I wanted to know her better, and I didn't want to use our coaching calls for this, which, by the way, were about 90 minutes a week and full of us sharing a lot of personal stories. A little bit like talking to a close friend. I asked her if she would like to hang out sometime. We didn't live that far from each other, and I figured this would allow me to get to know her better and maybe keep the coaching calls to coaching. It really seemed like we were developing a more personal connection, and I wanted to explore that separately from the coaching. Of course, I never articulated all of that to her. I doubt I even realized it at the time. I simply asked if she wanted to hang out. And so we started going to events together, getting together for walks or workouts, and meeting up for drinks and or meals. Instantly, again, red flags are popping up for me here. I really think that whether you are a coach, you are a therapist, you are any kind of support system for someone, there are definitive boundaries, in my opinion, again, that need to be defined as what is the work, what is our professional relationship, and how do we maintain our contact, I guess, within the confines of that relationship. I think back to a couple of years ago, I was working with the Canadian Mental Health Association as a peer support specialist. So basically, I was a member of a care team. So essentially, we had a therapist, an addictions counselor, and then myself, the peer support specialist, as a team of three, and we would work 3-on-1 with a client. Now, in my relationship as the peer support specialist with the client, I wasn't there as a therapist. I wasn't there as the counselor. I was there as the peer to have one-on-one conversations and discuss on their level, their experience, what they were going through. Now, that being said, I wasn't there to be their friend. Sure, I was friendly and I built rapport with those clients, but I absolutely wasn't hanging out with them and going to events and sharing drinks or meals beyond the confines of our professional relationship. And I share this specific example because as a peer support specialist, you're not under a governing body. Your qualifications for the job are just your lived experience. And so I just think that that's a more accurate example, especially when we're kind of equating it to life coaching. I don't know if Coach Crazy here has a certification that she falls under, but as we've seen time and time again on this channel, many people who identify as coaches have no certification whatsoever. So they don't have a board or rules or regulations that they need to abide by in order to continue to show up as a coach. And so if you're not artificially creating those boundaries as a coach and client relationship on your own, I can see how it would be really easy to fall into this trap where you start to think your clients are your friends and your clients start to think that their coach is their friend, when really, in my opinion, again, it should just be a professional relationship with the two of you working together towards one common goal. And hey, maybe your coach can help you figure out how to make friends if you need to, but it is the coach's responsibility to uphold those boundaries and not agree to be your friend and socialize with you outside of the professional relationship. I would love to hear what other people think about this in the comments. Do you agree with me? Disagree? Let's have a conversation about that. For a few months, Coach K and I were coaching and seeming to have a super close friendship. I continued to call her for coaching sessions. Many things in my life were going really well for me, and it seemed to be a result of the coaching. I was advancing in my career, setting fitness goals, changing my mindset about a few things, which resulted in me having more patience and gratitude for my husband. I was also becoming more efficient and spending less time with colleagues who drained me. Coach K called my success the ripple effect. The positive changes I had made with my health were rippling into all areas of my life. I could see this happening, and it was really powerful. It gave me more belief in the coaching work and in Coach K as someone I trusted to guide me. I started to tell Coach K more about the general anxiety I felt in my daily life. She shared some breathing and meditation practices that were helpful. I had always thought I needed to talk through anxiety, but her approach was about feeling it in my body and letting it go. Using the techniques she shared, I felt I was much more grounded and able to get through situations that had really stressed me out in the past. When I expressed my gratitude for her ideas, she would say things like, "I used to be anxious all the time and worried about what others thought. A total people pleaser. I'm not saying that's what you are, Jane, but I would never define you or label you. But I just know that you remind me a lot of my former self. For years, I have dedicated to doing the self-work, and I am not that person anymore. I can help you with this too." It's giving, I did this thing one time, so therefore I am qualified to teach you how to do this thing too. I was curious. This woman was a few years older than me and someone I looked up to. She seemed to embody the ideas that I valued: confidence, patience, kindness, and an inner calmness. I had struggled with generalized anxiety my entire life. She was claiming that through diet, exercise, mental toughness, and meditation, she had reached some heightened sense of total zen and she could lead me to this life as well. This definitely lured me in. Who doesn't want to be more chill? Her health coaching had a huge positive impact on my life, and I 100% trusted her at this point. So I was willing to let her lead me to some type of divine bliss. Coach K recommended a ton of books to me that were all about overcoming limiting beliefs and changing your deeply set patterns on a cellular level. I would read each book diligently, hoping to learn and grow, and I would try every exercise and strategy the author discussed. The harder I tried to follow the suggestions in the book, the more anxious and frustrated I seemed to become. I would bring this up to Coach K, and she would explain that I just needed to believe it and it would work. "I think you just have an energy block, Jane. In my experience, when I'm resisting something, it usually means I'm not trusting myself enough." And I would encourage you to explore that. Why don't you trust yourself? What's happened in your life that has led you to doubt yourself? I think if we had started with this type of working questions, I would have had way less belief in Coach K's questions and guidance. However, the foundation of our work had been incredibly powerful, and these new healthy habits had stuck. One day, I asked a specific question about something in one of these books, and Coach K was confused and clueless. As I specified the part I was referring to, she said, "Oh, I didn't read that. The universe guides me, and then I read that section." Instead of running away from this woman at that point, I seriously think I thought, "Oh, wow, she's so unconventional, so unprogrammed by the society's norms. Maybe I would be less anxious if I could be like that." You know, for me, this is bringing up some feelings about my own experience in the coaching industry. I shared my entire scam story, if you will, in a video during the 12 Days of Coachmas, in case you missed it. But I can really empathize with this person in that once you start to build a one-on-one relationship with a coach or really just anyone that you seem to look up to, you are much less likely to critically analyze their behavior or the things that they tell you or say to you. And I genuinely think that's why we see so many people get so caught up in the coaching industry in general and get so deep into something that from the outside seems really weird and seems really strange. And I often get comments all the time here on YouTube of people asking and saying, like, "I don't know how anyone would be silly enough to fall for these things." Once you are in someone's bubble, if you will, and you're consuming their content and you're listening to what they're saying and you're believing what they tell you, your ability to think with your normal brain and be critical of what's happening goes out the window, I think. So I can absolutely see how this relationship would have started one specific way. You start to get results, you start to feel really good about yourself, and your life is changing in a positive direction. Why would I start to question the person who helped me achieve those things, right? If someone is presenting you with information or guidance that is having a positive impact on your life, your business, your spirituality, I think you're much more likely to just blindly follow whatever else it is they have to say. Because if this one thing that they taught me was true, why wouldn't this other thing be true? So I can definitely feel for you, and I can see how you would end up in this situation, especially if this particular coach is feeding into the narrative of like, I see myself in you, your results are my results, and I feel so connected to you, and you've built this friendship outside of your coaching relationship. I think everything starts to get enmeshed and entangled. It would be really difficult to kind of detach yourself from that situation. Soon, 4 months from when I started health coaching, Coach K and I were hanging out almost weekly and texting back and forth throughout the week a lot. I felt like she understood me in a way that very few people ever had. We talked about everything: our childhoods, spirituality, our husbands, fitness, self-improvement, outdoor activities we both enjoyed, a desire to make our world a better place, digestion, feminism, social norms, and how they serve us and don't serve us, her business, and anything else you could imagine. I honestly felt like I had made a friend for life, a real special connection with a person who had changed my life for the better, and a person who I thought was pretty special and fantastic. Coach K would regularly tell me she loved me and say things like, when I meet people like you, Jane, something inside of me opens up. Our energies are so aligned. Your vibration is so strong and high. I tell you things I don't tell anyone, and I am very selective with who I let in. Our coaching work and our personal relationship is very meaningful to me, Jane. Very meaningful. She loved to repeat things for the effect and then say my name as well. I felt our work and relationship was also meaningful and was honored that I was one of the few people she felt close to, but I was a little freaked out about it. It seemed super intense and like we had become close friends way faster than I had with any of my other friends. I also realized that I was starting to feel clingy and attached. Whenever something good or exciting happened to me, I wanted to tell Coach K. Whenever I felt anxious, I wanted to talk about it with Coach K. Whenever I just wanted to hang out with a friend, I wanted it to be Coach K. I told Coach K this. I told her that I was concerned that something wasn't healthy about our relationship for me, and it sort of felt like therapy. I even asked how some of our talks were different from therapy. Her response was automatic, almost like she was reading from a script, but I didn't realize that at the time. She said, coaching deals with the present, therapy deals with the past, and that just takes too long for real change to occur. So we focus on the now. It felt off to me, especially because we were talking about the present. She was constantly suggesting I think about, write about, or tell her about my childhood needs. I told her I was thinking it might be time to stop coaching. I had paid up until a certain point, and I suggested we continue to work till then, but start to taper off. She said something like, as a strong woman, Jane, we think we need to do everything on our own. You're just not comfortable leaning in for support because we get messages from the media and our parents and our friends and our school that independent women can carry the weight of the world on their own. That's what I think is going on. Jane, what if you just embrace the support you're getting from me? I'm going to invite you to reread ... She started suggesting one of those books she had actually never read herself and told me to go explore what might be holding me back from accepting love and support. This is wild, so manipulative, allegedly, in my opinion. You present the coach with reasons why you want to quit, and rather than just say, okay, maybe this isn't the right fit for you, she turns it around and says it's because you're believing the media and your friends and your family for telling you that strong, independent women don't need support. Get out of here with this. This is so manipulative. Oh my God. Then she would say something like, I know from my own experience that I used to not see my worth. I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm just sharing a similar story from my life. I once worked with a coach who was really helping me. I was getting excellent results. But then someone said something to me about it. Questioned why I, a master coach and success alchemist with a proven track record of thousands of clients and counting, would still need a coach. And guess what? I stopped working with that coach. I didn't love myself enough to listen to my intuition. I let that one comment get in my head and stopped doing something that was working for me. I didn't think my worth was important enough. And so because this was my experience, I am now projecting it on you as truth. Like, what is happening? When I mentioned I wasn't interested in hanging out with my friends much anymore, and this was also a bit odd for me, she assured me that was common and part of the transformational work. You're going to become a new version of you. People and habits that used to serve you might not serve you anymore, so you lovingly let them go. I spend a lot of time alone. The stronger I became, the less interested I am in other people and their bullshit. Don't get me wrong, I have a few close relationships like ours, but it's common that we become more spiritual, more aligned to our higher self, and more successful in all areas of our life. We tend to spend a lot more time with the few individuals like us on a similar path. It might feel lonely or different at first, but change is always hard and uncomfortable in the beginning. Not necessarily a sentiment I totally disagree with. I do think that sometimes in life, as you change your habits, you change your behaviors. Maybe you want more for yourself than what the current community of people you surround yourself with want. Some of those people will fall away. But in this context, once again, it sounds to me like this coach is using this as a manipulation tactic to get you to stick around and keep paying her.
Like, oh, you're just scared that you have to let go of the people in your former life. If you want to live your highest self, most connected to your intuition, you should just ditch all of your friends and pay me more money.
So I heard and believed everything she said and didn't end the coaching. I continued to dig deeper into my soul. Were there relationships I needed to let go? Was I not loving myself enough? Was I ignoring my worth? Was that why I was growing increasingly anxious and worried about my relationship and seemingly unhealthy dependence on Coach K? I was mortified and ashamed of how dependent I was feeling. Yet I just couldn't figure out how to stop feeling so attached to her. I would rationalize to myself that she had changed my life. She had transformed me, of course. I would feel a strong connection and appreciation for her. And I could think of so many times in my life where change had been uncomfortable. So her words made sense to me. I didn't really talk about any of this with anyone. My husband knew how much I liked Coach K, but I didn't tell friends or other family members about the internal struggles I was having. I figured they would never understand because they were not on this special spiritual healing journey that I was on. Shortly after I mentioned that I thought it would be a good idea for me to stop coaching, I remember two things Coach K nonchalantly shared with me in the next few calls. I hadn't thought much about it at the time, but I look back now and there were some really calculated comments. First, she said something like, I just want you to know that I'm raising my prices, but this will not affect you. I will always keep my current clients at the same price point they came in on, so your program will not go up when you renew. I did want you to know that. Of course, this is for continuous clients. If a client wants to stop and then start again later, I have to offer the higher price point. And in another seemingly casual way, she once told me that most of her clients stay with her for at least 10 years. Okay, so false sense of urgency, false sense of, oh, the price is going to go up if you don't re-sign. Again, gross, manipulative, something we see time and time again across the coaching industry, really. And in this case, in my opinion, allegedly, she's using it as a means of getting you to continue to sign up because, oh, if you leave now and then you decide you want to come back in 6 months, I might just double the price and that's too bad for you because you quit and I don't deal with quitters. I sort of lived in this weird place of confusion for a few months, grateful for the positive changes I had sustained in my life. Fitness, food choices, relationship with family, work, all thriving. Plus, I was way less reactive in some situations, and I had found healthy work life balance. I was so grateful for this amazing relationship with this wise, enlightened coach who would lead me to a place of complete zen if I followed her guidance. Plus, I had this new and special friendship on top of that, yet something was gnawing at me. Was I paying for this friendship? What parts of our relationship were coaching? What parts were genuine friendship? And at times, it really felt like therapy. Isn't it bad for people to mix those things up? I realized I was consumed with my work with Coach K and consumed with trying to understand the confusing relationship. Again, absolutely agree. This is absolutely why I think it's so important that the practitioner needs to be enforcing boundaries because it puts the client in such a vulnerable and confusing position to understand what is the coaching relationship? What is our personal relationship? What can I share here? What should I share there? Where does the boundary lie? Nowhere, because it doesn't exist. Everything starts to get all tangled up together. And I think that it can be really unproductive and ultimately harmful for the client because they don't feel safe in knowing what the relationship really even is or what the expectations are. We'd been working together for about 10 months when I told Coach K I needed space. I told her I wasn't well. I told her I was concerned for my mental health. I told her I needed to figure this out on my own. I didn't say I wanted to end coaching or stop being friends. I just let her know that I needed some time and space to figure things out on my own. The only problem was that I actually couldn't figure this out on my own. Other than my husband, I had no one to turn to, and my husband could only help so much. He encouraged me to see a therapist, but it took some time before I did this. I could see that I had slowly disconnected from my friends and other supports, and I was too ashamed of my behavior to reach out to anyone. I felt completely responsible for the mess that I was in. It seemed like overnight I entered a sudden dark and deep depression. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't concentrate at work. I couldn't eat a single thing. After a few days of living in this zombie state, I called Coach K. I told her I needed help, and she seemed happy to step in. She praised me. "It is a sign of your strength that you're reaching back to me for help." She was helpful by listening to me and offering breathing and grounding ideas, but she acted like we had never had a personal relationship. She suddenly became business only. While this was incredibly painful, I was so unwell and unstable that I accepted any help she could offer. Again, when I stated that I was worried about my mental health, I will say it was very dark, close to unaliving ideations, like no plans or desire to end my life, but sadness that was so painful that I could certainly understand how that seemed like an option that others would choose. It was pretty dark inside my mind for about a month or so, but I slightly improved, and at the time, I thought it was because of Coach K's help. I did finally talk to a therapist, but I never revealed the depth of what was going on or why I was in this state. It was too shameful. I thought all my sadness was my own fault. When I started to feel a bit more stable, I started to ask Coach K about our relationship. I asked if we could be friends again and if we could define the parts of our relationship that were friendship and the parts that were coaching. She would say things like, "This is what you asked for. This is the professionalism you requested." She also said, "You have a lot of work to do. I think you know that, and I invite you to consider this situation from my perspective. How would you feel if someone you opened up to and shared all of yourself to asks for space out of the blue, Jane? How do you think you would respond and feel after that?" When I heard that, I began to believe that I had done something horrible. I thought I needed to fix this, repair the relationship that had felt so special. I was disgusted with myself. I took 100% responsibility for hurting someone who had helped me so much and trusted me, and so I apologized again and again. This is insane. This woman is truly unhinged.
It's not my fault that I blurred the boundaries of our professional relationship. That is your fault, even though you are the client and I'm the professional. I'm going to put the blame on you so that I don't have to take any accountability.
That's what I'm hearing. Around this time, Coach K and I entered what I think of as the hot and cold phase. She would be warm and supportive and act like we were friends, sharing personal information, and then suddenly pull back and act aloof. I would ask what was going on, and she would say, "I am lovingly putting up boundaries. I encourage you to explore why you are taking this so personally. I invite you to read the 4 agreements." And the very sad part is that at this time, I didn't see any of her lines as manipulative or cruel. I truly believe that she had the best intentions for me, and I needed to do the work and learn how to not take things so personally. I thought, I guess I've never really put up boundaries in my life, and she is showing me how to do it. So brainwashed, I now know. I have since learned that the hot and cold cycle is a classic narcissistic emotional abuse. It is called intermittent reinforcement, and it leads to a trauma bond. I sort of hate some of those seemingly trendy psychobabble terms, but it seems to explain a lot. Trauma bonded means I became addicted to getting validation, warmth, and support from her, even though some of her interactions were causing me pain. There is a reason therapists do not befriend their clients. It can lead to attachment, dependence, transference, and confusion, and that's what I believe was happening. It is an abuse of power. Ultimately, I could not see it that way. That is the thing about abusive relationships. When you are deep in it, you can't see the things that would be obvious to others. Also, if you met this woman on the street, you would see a hippie and an all natural self proclaimed healer. Not knowing what was causing my anxious feelings, I would ask Coach K why I was so sad, worried, and in pain. She said crazy shit like, "You are so close to stepping into your power, it's like you are finally coming home to your highest self. We finally cracked you open, and a new you is emerging like a snake shedding its skin. You are feeling pain because change is hard, and I think you are on the brink of a major breakthrough in your growth. She also suggested that I just needed to find my purpose. Every now and then, she would imply that my current career wasn't fulfilling me, and she'd say stuff like, "I'd never tell you what to do. I'm not telling you to quit your job. In the end, you are responsible for your choices and decisions. I will only share what has worked for me and allowed me to live a life of freedom, joy, and peace." Years ago, I decided I wasn't going to settle for the traditional expected life society tells us to live. I knew it was my destiny to help other women on similar paths and journeys as me. Like you, Jane, I am a helper, and I will always lead with love. Always, always, always. And so I ditched the 9 to 5 rat race and made a life that I adored. You, like me, don't settle. You know there is something bigger and better for you. You are meant to do great things. As you know, I used to work as a business coach. I had to step out of the business because it wasn't serving my higher good anymore. I was doing the heavy lifting and my clients were not. They'd sign up, but never follow through. Then they'd be mad at me. You know, blame the coach. They just weren't ready to do the work. I still get people dropping into my DMs on the daily asking for business coaching, but it's always a hard no for me. For a few special clients, I would make an exception. You are definitely one of them. So, just an idea. No pressure. You know I would never pressure you. Never, 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 Jane. That's not my MO, but I know you are always leveling up in every area of your life, so just know that down the road, I would open a business coaching slot for you. It's a higher price point, of course. The energy it takes is just on a whole different level. I know you understand this, Jane. You know you have to invest in yourself if you want to succeed. I just want what's best for you. Think about what you really want. What is your purpose? How will you make a small dent in this world? Fortunately for me, when she started to say stuff like that, I could finally see through her sliminess. She also tried to sell me a $2,500 food and fitness audit. I used to feel uncomfortable selling services at this price, but again, I was not seeing my worth. As women, we are so used to playing small and not being true to ourselves. It is my purpose in life to help women, and so it is my responsibility to let women know I have what you need to get to the next level. I remember asking how that was different from the health coaching we had started with, and she claimed it was something different, more personalized, and it could help me uncover what was keeping me stuck and why I was feeling sad and anxious. I was growing very skeptical and considered ending the coaching relationship at this point. However, I kept thinking about the success in my health, fitness, career, and relationship with my husband. That success and the sick attachment I had developed kept me from ending the coaching. Plus, she was back to telling me about her personal life and behaving like we were friends. The experience that really opened my eyes to the severity of the situation was when I finally couldn't deny that Coach K was 100% flipping out of her mind and delusional. This was when she told me that her limiting beliefs were keeping her from manifesting working with Taylor Swift. During one of our coaching sessions, she began saying stuff like, "I am closing the book of excuses. I know, I just know I am destined for great things, and yet I sabotage myself." Letting that familiar and programmed tape recorder tell me, "I'm not good enough." But wouldn't you know, Jane? I can turn that tape off. I can manifest parking spaces. Seriously, ask my husband. When we enter a packed parking lot and I drive right up to the front, the spot you would least likely find an open space in the spot that's the best spot. And guess what? There's an open parking space every time. And so I know I have this power and ability for something amazing. I need to put that energy into my business and work to my full potential. And that means manifesting working with Taylor Swift. She needs me. I know this. And I could help Travis Kelce. I look at his alignment and I know that I could fix that by having him lay on a bamboo block. I could heal the entire NFL with my bamboo blocks. That is the work I'm meant to do. That is what I am meant for. Yet, I'm wasting my energy manifesting parking spots, letting my limiting beliefs keep me safe. Anyway, I'm telling you this so that you can understand the power of manifesting. Oh my Lanta, what is happening? So that was when I realized it was time to run the fork away from this woman. I wish I could tell you ending the relationship was easy. Haha, swift like Coach K's destined next client. It was not swift and easy. I realized this woman was really out there and not someone I wanted any life coaching from. But I still thought that we had some special personal relationship. Don't we all have a few crazy friends? True. I mustered up the strength to tell her I was ending coaching, and she didn't try to convince me to keep coaching this time. I actually lied and said maybe I would pick it up in the future. I think I was lying to myself in that statement as well. I was so confused and torn. How could something have been so good and also so horrible? I asked about our relationship apart from coaching, and she told me she was not planning to have a personal relationship with me. She insinuated that I had misunderstood coaching. Most of the personal stories she had told me were apparently part of coaching, and she'd always been in service to me. It could have been devastating, but it was actually a relief. I finally didn't have to live in confusion and misunderstanding anymore. I think that this is a perfect example of how transactional a lot of these relationships can be. I recently was being interviewed on a podcast, and the host was asking me questions about what constitutes manipulative behavior or examples of what manipulative behavior looks like for coaches. And I truly believe that when coaches fail to exercise boundaries and treat their clients like friends, that can really result in a transactional relationship if the friendship, the relationship outside of the coach and client relationship is not genuine and is dependent on that client continuing to pay that coach. I mean, this is a tale as old as time that we've seen if you watch anti-MLM content. Often when people leave their MLMs, they're sort of exiled from the group of friends that they've created within that MLM. Same often goes for cults or organized religion. When you leave those groups, you are often exiled from the community and you lose out on those friendships that you had before. All of the friendships in any of these examples are dependent on you maintaining that relationship. And so when it comes to toxic coaches and their clients, the friendship, alleged friendship that you've developed with that coach as the client is really only dependent on you continuing to pay them. And once you decide you don't want to pay them anymore, they pass it off like you were never friends in the first place and that it was all part of the coaching, which is super interesting to me because she said they would like hang out and go to events and be drinking together and having dinner together. And my understanding as a client of a coach would be that we are in a coaching relationship when we're on our coaching calls, not when we're just like hanging out. But anyway, now I am working with a qualified therapist to understand all of the effed up things that went down with Coach K. I also attend weekly support meetings, read a lot about narcissism and emotional abuse, watch shows like The Vow. That cult is so similar to the one this woman was in, minus the sex slave and branding part, and following these great YouTube videos. This has all helped me slowly begin to heal from this horrendous mess. Every day is a struggle, and every day I get a little stronger and further away from the mind forkery. The positive changes that I have made in my life while working with Coach K remain and continue. I've also reconnected with friends and family I lost touch with when I was consumed in the coaching relationship. If Coach K were a therapist, I could file a report and she would lose her license for her behavior, but she is not a therapist. She just tried to be one. Except she didn't follow the ethical guidelines a therapist is supposed to follow. The scary thing is that anyone can call themselves a life coach. I have looked up her credentials. Her nutrition and fitness certifications are legit and from reputable sources. However, her coaching certification seems to have come from a business coaching organization that doesn't even operate anymore. If I hadn't lived this experience, I'd think I was a total vulnerable fool who must have been desperate for a friendship or something. But that isn't who I am. I am actually a smart, successful, empathetic, and driven woman who believes or believed that people are good and honest like me, and that growth and reflection can make our lives better. I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I recognize it's worth exploring why I was so easily captivated by her love bombs. But ultimately, Coach Crazy was obviously not well herself, and she abused the power she had in our professional relationship, wildly crossed boundaries, and engaged in so many unethical tactics. I know she might simply be a real bad seed out there in the world of coaches, but the industry itself attracts narcissists. And since nothing can stop people from claiming they are a life coach, this type of abuse can and most likely will continue. Okay, that was a lot. I want to thank the individual who submitted this story so sincerely for doing so and for articulating your experience in such detail and just so vulnerably. I think that this is really eye opening for me as the reader of this story, and I'm sure for those of you that are watching, to really just notice and acknowledge how much thought and care went into being able to articulate this experience. In particular, I really appreciate the way in which you shared sort of the journey of your experience with Coach K and how initially the relationship itself was actually quite beneficial for you, as you noted, with the positive impacts you were experiencing in your life, only to then eventually turn sour, as illustrated by the emotional harm that was obviously inflicted upon you. And so I really just think that this particular experience, in sharing it, it really helps to demonstrate the complexities of the implications of having an unregulated industry. So, not everything that happens in coaching is horrible and terrible, but that being said, while positive things can happen, lots of horrible and terrible things are actually taking place as well. And I really just think your particular reflections on how the relationship evolved from something that was really positive into something that wasn't is a story that so many of the viewers here on the channel are going to be able to relate to and resonate with. And so I really, really, really do appreciate you for being so vulnerable and sharing this experience. For those of you watching, I really hope that this story serves as somewhat of a cautionary tale of what can happen when you start to put all of your trust into a particular individual who holds power over you. And I really just hope that by sharing stories like this and having these conversations, I'm really just able to highlight some of the potential dangers of coaches cosplaying as therapists and the harm that can undoubtedly follow when we don't recognize those patterns and behaviors at the time. So I would love to hear any thoughts, comments, questions that people have in the comments down below. I will meet you there. If you have a story that you would like to have me read out here on the channel, the coaching scam story submission form is linked in the description down below. I want to thank the person who submitted this once again for bringing this conversation to the forefront. This is so, so important, and we wouldn't be able to have these conversations without people being willing to transparently share their experiences. So I really sincerely do appreciate you so, so much. That's going to be it for today's video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you had a good time. Take care, comb your hair, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!